Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Love Over Fear Show. I am Chelsea, coming to you live for today's episode. And okay, I think I'm live. And I'm just out of breath. I just ran downstairs. I'm really excited and passionate about today's episode because I believe that this is my main message. This is what I'm going to be talking about today is like the core message of Healing Embodied. The core of the work that we do is what I'm going to be talking about today. So I could talk about this until I'm blue in the face, but I'm just going to try to keep it concise and go over the main points that I think are going to be really helpful, really illuminating, and really empowering. So if you are joining with me live, say hello, connect with me. Don't mind my kitchen cabinet doors here in my office. We are still doing lots of renovations on our house. So if you're joining with me live, if you're hanging out with me, say hello. And we're going to go ahead and get this party started because this is a really action-packed episode. I am not going to be sugarcoating things. This is not a feel-good message. This is going to go beyond. This is going to go deeper than what the fear-based mind wants to hear. Because as long as we're just trying to satisfy our fear-based mind, we are staying stuck in the cycle. We are staying in the paradigm of living a life of fear. And as you know, this show is called the Love Over Fear Show. How do you begin to live a life from a place of love instead of a place of fear? Hi, Emily. Hi, Katrina. Thanks for joining. How can you begin to live from your values, from what's important to you, from your desires, instead of your fears? So this episode is really going to get into that. And to live from a place of love and not fear is hands down the most courageous thing you will do in this lifetime. And to be able to, I don't want to say master it because I'm always still learning how to live from love instead of fear, but to be able to shift your paradigm from fear to love is the most important thing your soul will do in this lifetime. So, are you ready for today's episode? I've kind of built it up a lot, but it's so important what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm just so passionate and so excited to be sharing this with you. So without further ado, today's episode is what to do if shit hits the fan. Yes, what to do if shit hits the fan. And since we do talk about relationship anxiety here, I'm going to be talking about the context of what to do when shit hits the fan in your relationship. But this message really applies to any area of life. Again, this is the core. This is the meat and potatoes of the message of Healing Embodied and the work that we do. So what to do when shit hits the fan in life and in your relationship. So I'm going to pull up my notes because I have a lot to say and I can get very TED Talk ranty, as I like to call it. So what to do if shit hits the fan. Now, one of the main driving fears of relationship anxiety is, what if we break up? What if this relationship ends? What if we break up? Either I have to leave, I discover I have to leave, or they leave me. What if we have to break up? And what if I'm not in the right relationship? It all kind of boils down to this: what if we break up? What if I realize I'm in the wrong relationship and therefore I have to leave? Or what if they stop loving me or cheat on me and they leave me? What if we break up? This is like the core fear, and all these other fears really boil down to this. I love when people think that they're like, and I say this with all the love, I love when people think that they have this unique fear of, what if it's not really relationship anxiety? I'm in the wrong relationship. Honey, that's not a unique fear. That is one of the most on-brand things of relationship anxiety ever. But if we peel back the layers of that, it's really, what if I have to break up with my partner? Right? So everything is boiling down to this core fear. And if you're with me live, do you relate to this? Have you had these fears? What are some of the fears that you've had? And can we take a look at it and really ask, is the core of that, what if we break up? What if we get a divorce? What if I have to leave or they have to leave? So this fear is our prison. The longer we feed into this fear, the longer we try to avoid this fear, figure out this fear, be certain about this fear, the longer we are in this fear, we are putting ourselves in our own prison. That's it. That's the fear. Yes, yes. We're putting ourselves in our own fear. What if he leaves me? Yeah, totally. What if I'm not good enough? What if he is fed up with my bullshit or whatever story we tell ourselves? It's what if we separate? What if we break up? What if we get a divorce? What if I lose my partner? Right? This fear is our prison. Yes, same. Oh, yes. Thank you guys for chiming in. I'm always convincing myself that my situation is unique and I'm just making the anxiety up. That statement alone, I really need to keep a tracker because I just want you guys to see how not unique, how not unique we are. We are unique, and at the same time, this is a pattern. This is a pattern that we can really look at. So this fear is our prison. When we're in relationship anxiety, the longer we feed into this fear, the longer we believe this fear, the longer we try to avoid this thing happening, we are in our own mental prison, essentially. So what happens when we are trapped by this fear? I'm gonna take a little swig of water. What happens when we are just caught up in this fear of what if I lose my partner? What if we have to break up? What if they leave me or I leave them? What happens when we are in this? Let's just name some things out. Rumination, right? We're going to be thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this in a very cyclical way. We're going to be obsessively thinking about and looking for evidence of us having to leave our partner or our partner leaving us. We go into rumination. We spend all of this mental energy, all of this precious time thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. So we go into rumination. When we're trapped by this fear, we also go into this desperate pursuit of certainty. I need to know for sure that we're not going to break up, that I'm in the right relationship, that my partner really loves me, whatever it is. We go into this desperate. It has an energy of desperation, right? When we can look at the energy behind things, we can see what's really going on. It's fear, this urgent desperation for certainty. When we're trapped by this fear, we also go into seeking control. We want to control the uncontrollable. We want to control our partner. We want to control, what we're doing and what we're thinking and what we're saying. We go into seeking control because we believe, okay, if I can just have control over how my partner sees me, or if I could just have control about, how I'm showing up in the relationship, then this terrible thing won't happen. If I could just make sure that I'm in the right relationship, or that my partner loves me enough, if my partner thinks I'm attractive enough, if I think I'm attracted enough to my partner, if I could just make sure, it's like this white knuckling. If I could just make sure, then this deepest fear won't come true. We also go into avoidance. We might go into avoidance when we're trapped by this fear. So if we are so afraid of breaking up, we might fear commitment because we're like, what if I make this next step of commitment and then I lose my partner? We have to break up. We get a divorce. So we're going to avoid commitment. We're going to avoid expressing how we really, really feel about them because we say, well, if I'm going to have to end up leaving anyway, because that's my biggest fear, if I have to end up leaving anyway one day, then what's the point? Then I don't want to really share my love and affection. Then I don't really want to fully open my heart. So I'm going to put this wall up. I'm going to kind of avoid fully being in the relationship because I'm afraid that it's actually just going to end anyway. I'm afraid that the other shoe is going to drop any minute. I'll answer questions in a moment. Another thing that happens when we're trapped by this fear is we feel disconnected. Right? If we have this wall up, if we're controlling, if we're ruminating and spending all of this mental energy on figuring out this fear, avoiding this fear, how do you think that's going to impact how you show up in the relationship or how you feel about the relationship? Do you think you're going to feel connected and affectionate and passionate and excited about your relationship if this fear is kind of humming in the background? No, you're going to feel disconnected. And then, of course, that experience of disconnection is just only fueling that fear even more. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, it's this cycle. And then finally, when we're trapped in this fear, we're never actually experiencing the fullness of love. We either have one foot out the door, we're avoidant, or we're clinging and grasping. And right, when we're clinging and grasping and in that energy of desperation, urgency, or closing up our heart, it's really hard to experience the fullness of love since we're not fully present with what is, because our mind is focused on what could be. Ooh, let's take a breath with that because ooh, that's a lot. It's heavy stuff, but like I said, I'm not sugarcoating this. I want to lay it all out so you can see it clearly how this fear is perpetuating this cycle, how this fear is keeping you trapped. So I will take this question here by Emily. Is it possible to be too far gone? By that I mean, I thought the thoughts and focus on the negative so much that my mind has accepted that a breakup is necessary and there's no other options. I'm no longer questioning everything or thinking what ifs. And you probably think you're the only one who thinks this, but this is another thing that I hear over and over and over. We have identified, we have become fused with this fear so much that it warps our perception of reality and we believe that it is true. We begin creating this reality in which I'm so afraid of this happening that instead of trusting in the unfolding, I'm just going to make it happen because then I have control. If I break up, then I'm the one controlling the pain. Instead of opening my heart, fully trusting with the possibility that it might come at me without my control. Oh, shit. Okay. So let's go on to this next part. So this is, what the things that happen when this fear of breaking up, this fear of losing our partner is trapping us. So I want to talk about why we fear the breakups and the uncertainties so much. Why do we fear it so much? Why does it take up so much mental and energetic space and time? Why does it occupy so much of our perception of reality? Why does it occupy so much space in our brain? So we think we fear the uncertainty. We think we fear the breakup. We think we fear losing our partner. But here's what we actually fear. Here's what we're actually afraid of. We fear the pain. We don't fear the uncertainty because we experience uncertainty like literally every moment of life. When you wake up and you put your feet on the ground out of bed and you walk outside, you haven't projected any potential pain into that, but it's uncertain what's going to happen when you walk outside or when you put your feet on the ground. Maybe you trip on clothes you left on the floor and you fall and you hit your head on your dresser. But we haven't projected any pain into the uncertainty that we face in our day-to-day life. Because it's just kind of normal. It becomes just so routine. But in reality, all of life is uncertain. So we don't actually fear uncertainty because we face it every single day. We fear the pain and the emotion that we've associated with this worst case scenario that we've projected into the uncertainty, that we've projected into this potential loss and breakup. We're afraid of the pain that we would experience if we lost our person, if we lost our partner. We've projected the absolute worst case scenario, the absolute worst possible pain, that we will only feel pain and that this pain will last forever and that we are doomed to a life of misery. That's where the brain goes. It goes into something called catastrophizing. it looks at the future and says, there's pain here. There could be real pain here. And our mind projects so much pain around relationships because relationships are so damn vulnerable. Our hearts are on the line. There's not really much at stake when we're getting out of bed in the morning, but there's a lot more at stake when we choose to commit to someone in the face of an unknown future. So the anxious brain is projecting all of this pain, all of this potential pain, because you're vulnerable, because you love someone so deeply, you care about them so much, they're important to you. And so the thought of losing them carries so much weight, carries so much pain. There's so much emotional energy around this projection. So we fear this future potential pain and the emotion, the grief, the loss, the sadness, the disappointment, the regret. But we can't cope with what is not in our present reality. There's no action we can take if we're not actually physically going through loss. If that's just something that we've projected in our mind, we can't cope with something that's not really happening. We can't cope with not reality. There's no action you can take in a mental scenario that your mind has created. So it's always going to feel worse because there's no action you can take. There's nowhere for that emotional energy to go. You've created all this emotional energy because of this projection in your mind of this pain that you might experience. And you can't take any action. You can't release any of this emotional energy. So this emotional energy just stays in your body. It has nowhere to go because it's just created by your mind. So it's like bing, 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 bing. Feeds from your mind into your body, into your body, into your mind. It's always going to feel worse because the fear of these things happening is actually worse than the actual event. The fear of these things happening is so much worse than the actual event because there's no action we can take. There's nothing we can do. We feel completely powerless to these mental projections because they're not really happening. So we are just kind of trapped with them in our mind and there's nothing we can do with them, but yet our body is reacting as if they're real. So it's always going to feel worse. The fears of these things happening is always going to feel so much worse than the actual event. And I want to read to you a quote by the amazing Eckhart Tolle. If you haven't read anything by him or watched any of his, I almost said music videos, watch any of his YouTube videos, please go check that out. You can find free PDF downloads of his book, The Power of Now. His work was a cornerstone in my healing, and it's a big part of the philosophy of healing embodied. But I want to read this quote. He said, "You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future." I'm going to read that again. You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future because it's not really happening. And again, your mind is always going to project. It's going to catastrophize. It's going to say it's going to be so much worse. It's going to say you're going to feel endless pain that will last for a lifetime and that you have now brought on this life sentence. If you experience this pain, it's a life sentence. That's what the fear brain says. That's what it projects. Ooh, got some comments coming in. Emily did a little mind blown emoji. So another reason why we fear breakups and the uncertainty around this so much is that we don't trust our ability to cope and process the pain and process the emotion that would come up if we did experience loss. This is a quote that I've heard. I don't know who it's from or where it's from, but it goes something like this. Anxiety overestimates risk and underestimates our ability to cope. It underestimates our resilience. So anxiety says if you were to break up, it's going to be this big, horrible thing. You're going to feel endless amounts of pain. They're going to last a lifetime. You'll never feel any other emotion again. You won't be able to handle it. You're going to crumble. No one's going to be there. And if we've experienced trauma in the past in which we did feel like I can't cope, then there is some processing that we need to do to help to release this emotional energy and return to a sense of safety and resilience. But overall, anxiety says if you were to experience this breakup, you're not going to be able to cope. It's going to be the worst thing you've ever experienced in your life, and you're never going to get over it. You won't be able to handle it. You're going to crumble. You're not strong enough. It's going to destroy you, and you'll never be able to recover. Does that sound like the voice of anxiety? Is that what goes on in your mind when you're thinking about losing your partner, whether you break up with your partner or your partner breaking up with you? Does anxiety start to feed you this belief that it's going to be way too painful and that you're not going to be able to get through it? You're not strong enough. You're going to drown. You're not resilient. You're never going to bounce back. That's what anxiety makes us believe. It overestimates the risk, overestimates the pain, and underestimates our ability to cope. It underestimates our own resilience as human beings. You are a human being. And in that, by nature, you are resilient because the human species has made it to this point because of our resilience, because of our ability to handle challenges, to handle setbacks, to be creative, to create a new path when we come up against a wall, to handle loss and grief. We are a resilient species. Just take a moment and just feel into that. Like, feel into your ancestors. Feel into the ancestors of all of humanity and the resilience and the overcoming that we have faced over and over and over. You are not special. You are not an exception. You are resilient. And anxiety makes you forget that. Makes you forget your own nature, that you are resilient, that it's wired within you to handle pain and to heal and to die and be reborn over and over and over again in this lifetime. Okay. So let's talk about how trying to avoid this pain that we've projected, this pain of potentially breaking up or losing our person, how trying to avoid this pain actually makes you more anxious. We think that we would be in so much pain if we experience this, so we want to do everything to avoid it, thinking that if I avoid this pain, then I won't feel pain. But in doing that, we're actually creating more pain and suffering for ourselves. Trying to avoid pain actually makes you more anxious. And I'm not saying go create pain for yourself. We don't need to be masochists here. We don't need to be martyrs. But trying to live a life in which you avoid the possibility of pain is only creating more suffering for yourself. It's only making you more anxious. It's only fueling the fire of the fear and the anxiety. Because when we try to avoid pain, we go into avoidant and controlling mechanisms. And like I said, since there's nothing we can actually do and no action we can take, because this is just a projection of the mind, we try to seek control. We try to get this potential pain to be avoided. We try to like play God, so to speak. We try to control things that are not ours to control. We try to seek control through mental strategies. Since there's no physical action we can take, since nothing has actually happened, there's no action we can take. There's no emotional release. There's nowhere for this energy to go. We seek control through mental strategies. We overthink. We're like combing through the relationship, overthinking every aspect. Is this wrong? Is this wrong? Is this a sign? Is this a sign? Is this going to lead to a breakup? Is this going to lead to a breakup? We go into overanalyze. We overanalyze our partner. Did they look at me the right way? Do I feel the right way towards them? Do I feel enough towards them? Do they feel enough towards me? And we're overanalyzing ourselves. We're overanalyzing our partner. Again, we go into the rumination, just like thinking and thinking and thinking about the breakup that hasn't even happened, thinking about what we would feel, thinking about what we would do, thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. We go into comparison. Okay, is my relationship good enough? Is there any reason that I shouldn't be in this relationship? Let me look at this relationship over here. Or maybe we hear about someone else's breakup and we go, oh my gosh, is there anything in my relationship that's similar to them that would mean that we're going to break up? We go into comparison. And these are all forms of compulsions, right? We feel the discomfort because of this anxiety around this potential thing happening. And we do these controlling behaviors mentally or physically, right? Googling is one too, looking for answers. We go into these controlling strategies to try to quench the fire of this anxiety, of this fear. So these are known as compulsions, compulsive behaviors, compulsive thinking patterns. And this begins to impact our behavior. We begin to act from this place of fear. We begin to act from these thoughts. Comparison is a killer. We begin to act from this place. Again, we begin to believe the thought. We begin to fuse with the thoughts. We begin to over-identify with the thoughts. And therefore, our behavior becomes in alignment with these thoughts of overthinking, overanalyzing, ruminating, comparison, these mental compulsions. And when we have our behaviors in alignment with these fear-based thoughts, this ends up confirming that these thoughts are indeed threatening and that we do indeed need to do something about them when there is no threat happening, when there is no breakup happening right now, and it's all just in our mind right now. But when our behaviors start to be in alignment with these fear-based thoughts, it begins to confirm that these thoughts are indeed something that we need to eliminate, something that we need to figure out, something that we need to do something about, that they are indeed a threat, that this breakup is around the corner. So this ends up creating an endless feedback loop of fear and anxiety. So in trying to avoid the possibility of us breaking up with our partner breaking up with us, we end up creating within us more pain. We create this endless feedback loop of anxiety and fear. And this is unconscious. This is no one chooses joyfully and willfully to do this. This is all in the unconscious. Right? It's our mind's like misguided attempt at feeling safe because we're like, I'm not going to be able to handle the pain of a breakup. So what can I do to find some sort of bearing, to find some sort of grounding? Because the thought of a breakup, the thought of pain, the thought of uncertainty feels so groundless. So this is all these things that we do are this unconscious way of trying to feel safe, of trying to feel like, how can I ensure that I'm going to be okay? And that's the secondary gain. That's the thing that we get out of it. That's the like positive side of it. But it ends up creating more pain and more anxiety. And when we're avoiding pain, when we're always on the lookout for what could be a sign that we need to leave or that our partner is going to leave us, we never fully rest and relax because we're always on alert. We're hypervigilant, overly scanning ourselves and our partner, looking for the potential signs of impending doom. Lynn says it's so draining. Oh my God, it's so draining. It's exhausting being in this cycle of trying to avoid pain and therefore creating more anxiety for ourselves. We're never going to rest when we're like, what if, see, oh, my partner did that. Or, oh my gosh, I felt this way towards my partner. What does that mean if I did this and I felt this way towards my partner? But they said, all this energy, right? We never fully rest and relax in the relationship, in the present moment when we are hypervigilant, when we're looking out for potential pain, danger, and threat. And we begin to miss life. We're not present. We're missing out on the very thing that we want to experience, which is connection, which is to feel seen and to see another, because we're so future focused, which is the very essence of anxiety, constantly projecting into the future, whether it's re-experiencing pain that you felt in the past and afraid you're going to feel that again, or just creating these potential scenarios. Our mind is everywhere, but in the here and now. And again, like Eckhart Tolle said, you can always cope with the present moment. If shit were to hit the fan, you will be able to cope. Does it mean it's not painful? No, I'm not saying that a breakup would feel delightful and that you'll just effortlessly and easily get through it. No. But you're going to be able to cope. But you can't cope with something that is only a mind projection. You can't cope with the future. And on that note, sip of matcha. So, this is what happens when we're trapped in this fear. This is what happens when we try to avoid the potential pain of a breakup or loss. And this is where I'm going to get really real and where we're going to get uncomfortable, because being able to tolerate discomfort is a huge part of healing. And I'm not here to tell you that there is some formula where you can know for sure that you and your partner are going to be together forever. I wish there was. Do I want my marriage to last a lifetime? Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love my marriage. I love my partner. I care about him so much. I love what we have. I love what we've built. But can I be certain that it will last a lifetime? I can't, because I don't know the future. So here's what you need to do if your fears were to come true. Here's what has to happen if shit hits the fan. If you lost your partner, whether things started coming up in the relationship that were emotionally unsafe, that you couldn't see, whether your partner blindsides you, whether some crazy thing happens that we don't know, right? Here's what we need to do if shit were to hit the fan. Because it's not about convincing your anxiety that you'll never experience pain. Because as we see, that just keeps us in the loop. Because anxiety will always look for that 1% chance. Does my partner show any signs that he's going to leave me? No. Do I have any intention on leaving my partner? No. Is our relationship healthy? Yes. But anxiety is always going to look for that 1% chance that something bad might happen. It's still going to be on the lookout. It's still looking for, but what if, my anxiety used to be like, what if I marry him and I realize I made a mistake and then I have to divorce him, we have to go through divorce. And, I worked through that one. And then it started shifting to when I finally let myself fully love my partner without all the it switched to, what if he suddenly dies in a car accident? So your anxiety is going to look for that 1% chance of losing your partner. So really, it's not about convincing anxiety that nothing painful will ever happen. Like I said, do I want my marriage to last my lifetime? Yes. But I know that life is uncertain and life is unpredictable. So we're not here to convince the anxiety, no. See, you're going to last forever. Everything's going to be fine. Because it's going to look for that 1% chance. It's going to find the loopholes. When we try to argue with anxiety, it's only going to find more evidence. But what if this happens? But what if this happens? But what if that? It's only going to find more evidence. We can't promise certainty. In this crazy, weird life that we ended up in, whether you believe your soul chose this or this is just random, in this crazy weird life, in this meat suit, on this floating rock in space, we can't promise certainty. And there is no path of no pain. Again, I'm not saying choose a path in which you know that you're going to experience pain. I'm not saying go be with someone who is emotionally avoidant and manipulative and, doesn't care about your well-being. I'm not saying seek out pain. I'm saying there is no path of no pain. One day, me or Matt is going to die. If we have a relationship that's healthy and thriving until we're old, I'm still going to experience pain. There is no path of no pain. And I think we keep getting fed this message that there is. And when we find the perfect path, it's going to be a painless path. There is no path of no pain. And the sooner we can make friends with that, the more we can begin to actually start living instead of avoiding the possibility of pain. So what we have to do is learn to embrace the certainty, the possibility of pain and discomfort. And if shit hits the fan, if the painful thing happens in life, and again, this applies to anything, whether it's you lose your dream job, something happens financially, you lose your partner in one way or other, your freaking dog dies. I hate thinking about that day. I hate thinking about the day that I'm going to lose my dog. But I know that there is no path of no pain. So we have to make friends with the emotions that we're so afraid to feel. We must befriend the emotions like grief and sadness and disappointment and regret. We're such a disappointment and regret phobic society. Live with no regrets. Living on this earth, you're going to experience regret. It's just one of the many human emotions, one of the many things that we experience in being alive. We've got to make friends with the emotions like grief, sadness, disappointment, regret. The ones that they're so uncomfortable, they're so heavy. Our society doesn't teach us how to navigate them. We're so afraid to feel them. So instead of being afraid to feel, we have to befriend all of our emotions, the fullness of the human experience. And how do we do this? How do we make friends with our emotions instead of avoiding them and being afraid of them or feeling like they're never going to end or we won't know what to do if we feel them? Where do these emotions live? Our emotions live in our body. Our body is the seat, the home of our emotions. When you feel grief, it feels like your chest, someone just punched you in the stomach. It's in your body. Emotions is energy and motion in our body. Boiled down, emotions are sensations that we feel in our body. It's energy and motion. Anxiety keeps us in the mind. Thank you, Lauren. She says, I love how real this is. Yeah. Anxiety keeps us in the mind. And it keeps us from feeling. It says that we're never going to be able to cope with pain. So we have to learn to drop into the body, the house of our emotions, and feel the full range of human emotions. There is no path of no pain. To be human, to love, to live fully, is to open ourselves to the possibility of loss, grief, sadness, disappointment, regret. Oh, I'm feeling a lot of energy in my chest. Let's do a little body check-in. As you're hearing these words, just notice what's happening in your body. If there's a lot of energy happening, that's okay, because we're talking about things that are very heavy and really real. So just put a hand over whatever part of your body is feeling a lot of emotional energy, that energy in motion, and just breathe with it. Sometimes as we even just begin to acknowledge grief that we haven't processed in the past is like, oh my gosh, you're talking about me, and it starts to come up. So if you're feeling emotions, just honor that. If you need to take a break from this, the recording will be here. We have to learn to drop into the body and feel the full range of emotion, knowing how to move with the energy and motion, with the sensation, to be able to feel it and let it flow through us instead of avoiding it or shaming it or saying, go away, go away, go away, go away. To actually be friends with the sensations in our body. If your worst fears were to come true, divorce, death, breakup, loss, you must be able to feel the emotions that come with that. If my husband were to die, grief and I would be hanging out a whole fucking lot. But I know grief. I've gotten to know her. I've let her know that she's welcome into my human experience, that there's room for her and space for her, and that I know I need her. Thanks, Christiana. If your worst fears were to come true, if shit were to hit the fan, since we know there's no guarantee, since there is no path of no pain, you must learn to feel. You must learn to grieve. Grieving is the passing of the pain. And when we allow ourselves to grieve, it finally clears energetic and emotional space for newness to come in. Life is a continual cycle of death and rebirth. And if we always try to avoid death, and I'm not just talking about physical death, anytime we go through change or transition, a breakup, that's a death. Think of it as like a death. The more we try to avoid death, the more we're actually avoiding our own rebirth. So if we can learn to grieve, to feel in our body, to honor the deaths in life, the changes, the transitions, the heartbreaks, it actually makes space for rebirth. So if shit were to hit the fan, grieve, feel. Don't be afraid of the pain. Welcome it. Make friends with her. Invite her in. And trust that she's not going to be there forever. She's a passing visitor, and she's very necessary. Grief is very necessary to the human experience, and we've lost touch with that. You think about cultures in the past, tribes, they have these full rituals, these dances. We don't do that anymore. We don't like talking about our own death. I don't like talking about it. We must learn to grieve when shit hits the fan, and trusting that we can be with grief, and allowing the energy of the emotions to move through us, to cry, to breathe loudly, to make sounds, to dance, to move our arms, to yell, to throw stuff. We're so disembodied. And that makes us afraid of our own emotions because we feel like, oh, I wouldn't know what to do with this emotion. I wouldn't be able to handle it, but I promise you, you are wired to feel. Is anyone half robot out there? I don't think so. It kind of feels like we're starting to become that way with technology being an extension of us. But learning to feel is the greatest gift you could ever give yourself, because then you'll be able to flow with life. Because pain is an inevitable part of life. Disappointment, whether it's in the context of your relationship or not, pain is an inevitable part of life. Love is risk. There is no certainty in love. So instead of trying to avoid the possibility of pain, you have to learn to work with it. And maybe that means processing pain from the past that you've never fully processed, that keeps being reactivated and re-triggered by things in your current reality. Because when you actually begin to grieve, to clear out that emotional energy, to grieve the death, make space for rebirth and new life. Feel the emotions, let them flow through you, trusting that they're not here to hurt you, they're not here to kill you, they're not here to stay forever, that they're just sensations in your body, they're energy that need to be moved through you. You begin to move and flow with life. And that's the great paradox of this work that we do, and I haven't found another way around this. This is where I stand now. The paradox is that when you make space for pain, you actually start to experience joy. Again, I haven't found a way around this. When we welcome in the possibility of pain, when we process our own past pain, we actually begin to experience joy. And I want to give you a little visual here. So this is a stick. Let's imagine this is a stick. On one end of the stick is grief, and on the other end of the stick is love. To love is to mean that we might have to grieve one day if we lost that person. To grieve means we've loved deeply, we've cared, we let someone in. And when you try to throw out grief and the possibility of experiencing grief and loss, you're throwing out love. On this grief end, we also have sadness, disappointment, regret, all the emotions that we don't want to feel. And we have love, we have joy, we have gratitude, we have passion. So when we try to throw out the grief and the pain and the sadness, we're throwing out all the things that we so desperately want to feel. That's the great paradox. If anyone's figured out a way around it, let me know. But this is what I've discovered so far about the human experience. And this is the core of our message and our work at Healing Embodied, is to be able to fully love your partner. You have to make friends with grief. You have to acknowledge the grief that maybe wasn't fully acknowledged in the past. And that doesn't mean we are always expecting grief, right? We're not looking for pain. We're not seeking out suffering. We're making space for it. Okay, I want to read some comments. I find I grieve with past relationships and friendships. I feel guilty that I still grieve, but perhaps it's becoming more accustomed to grief being a regular visitor. If you're alive on this earth, let grief be a regular visitor. Small grief, big grief, grief comes in all shapes and sizes. Is that what you mean by constant death and rebirth? Yes. Any change, transition, and knowing that grief comes up in chunks. If we're processing grief from the past, it's going to come up in chunks, because that's the pace that our body is able to process it. You don't have to process all of it at once and feel the weight of it, all of it at once. You can let it come up in chunks. And Lauren also asked, so even grief when there is a conflict with a partner, as you're grieving past things, normalizing it all. Yes, we're going to go through stages of death and rebirth in our relationship. The death of a phase of our relationship, right? The beginning phase and the rebirth, the death of what we thought love was, and the rebirth of the new definition of love we're creating. Death and rebirth is everywhere. So again, when we're trying to throw out grief, possibility of pain, I don't ever want to feel pain. I couldn't ever feel it. I couldn't ever process it. We're throwing out the very things that make life worth living. And when we throw out grief and then we're like, why can't I feel love and connection? Then we start saying, oh my gosh, this must mean I'm in the wrong relationship and therefore I have to leave. We're just perpetuating the whole fear cycle. We don't feel love and connection and passion and joy because we've tried to avoid pain for so long. We've tried to control things that are not controllable. We've tried to find certainty in a world that there is no guarantee of certainty. We've closed off ourselves from feeling. So what makes you think you're going to be able to selectively experience love, joy, and connection when you are so afraid of grief and pain and discomfort? They're on the same stick. That's the paradox. That's the paradox. When shit hits the fan, grief, grieve, feel sad, feel your emotions, be in your body, surrender to the experience. And then trust that you'll be able to feel love and joy and gratitude again. Because they're on the same stick. Can't have one without the other. Let's go back to our bodies. Just noticing any sensation or energy we're feeling. Ooh. Lynn says, a word, trying to learn this. Yeah, it's a lifelong lesson, and the sooner you can get on board with it, the more life feels like an adventure instead of a terrifying nightmare. Because we can trust. We can trust. I know how to feel. I know how to be in my body. I know how to be with the discomfort. I know how to move with the sensations and the energy of the emotion. I trust that about myself. I trust in my own resilience and my own ability to bounce back. Therefore, if shit were to hit the fan, I know I can cope. So therefore, I don't need to fear it so much. I don't need to do everything in my power and waste all of this mental and emotional energy trying to avoid the pain, because I know I can handle it. Because I've done it before, and I've done it before, and I've done it before, and I've done it before. And look at me now. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I learned so much. I've grown so much. I've learned what it means to feel pain, so therefore I can relate to other people better. When shit hits the fan, we gotta let ourselves feel. When we no longer fear our own feelings, we no longer fear so intensely breaking up. And here's what happens. People get triggered when I say that and they go, but I want it to work out. I'm not saying that just because you don't have this intense fear of breaking up that you don't want it to work out. Remember when I said, I want my marriage to be lifelong. But I also know that life's uncertain. And I also know I know how to be with my pain and my grief. So if I were to lose my partner in one way or another, I know I would get through it. It would be painful, but I know I'd get through it. So therefore, I don't have this constant fear in the background. I can fully embrace my relationship. I can fully embrace life. I can fully embrace the possibility of failure, of disappointment, of regret. Because I've learned how to feel. I've learned how to feel. And that's what healing embodied does, is we teach you how to feel. We teach you how to feel so that you're no longer trapped in the prison of your mind. The work we do, to some of you who don't know me well, it could just seem like, oh, this is what this girl does. This is my life's work. This is my mission. This is my passion. I don't know anything else I could be doing on this planet than helping people learn how to be in their bodies and feel. Because that's the antidote to anxiety, is getting out of your head into your body, learning to feel, to stop fearing your own emotions, to stop trying to control, to stop overthinking and overanalyzing and looking for certainty. Because you learn to trust in your own resilience, to trust in the wisdom of your body. And if you want to do this with me, if you're wanting to learn, how do I do this? Because I can't tell you how. It has to be felt, right? We're going back to feeling. It has to be experienced. It's something we must learn to do if we were never taught. If you want to do this with me, then I really want to invite you to apply to work with us. We've got lots of different options. I want to get you connected with support so you can stop being so deathly afraid of what might happen and be able to fully embrace what's right in front of you, whatever that is. And to live in true freedom. When you're not chained by your fears, you get to be free. You get to be free. And that's the greatest gift I was ever given. It's the greatest gift I could give anyone. It's the greatest gift you could give yourself. There's nothing worth more than that. There's nothing worth more than that. And I can't convince you of that. You have to know that there's nothing worth more and your own freedom, your own inner freedom. So treat it like there's nothing worth more than that. Because there's not. You could be on all the vacations, you could have all the things, but if you are trapped by your fears of experiencing pain, you're not going to be able to enjoy any of that. You're not going to want to take risks that will benefit your life because you're so afraid. Because there's nothing worth more than your freedom. So if this is resonating with you and you're wanting to learn how to do this, how to be in your body, how to feel, how to stop fearing the worst, apply to work with us. I think we might be your people. I think we might be for you. And I think we might teach you something that will change your life. So I've posted the link. Apply to work with us. And I hope you're ready to go on the inner adventure of a lifetime. Because that's what this work is. That's my mission. It's my life's work. That's the core of what we do. All right, everybody. Thank you to everyone who's watched. This is probably the longest episode we've ever done. But again, like I said, this is the most important thing. This is the core of our mission, the core of our work, the core of my life's mission. And this applies beyond relationships. This applies to the whole human experience. So this was a long one. Thanks for watching. I'm really excited for you. I'm really excited for you to be able to feel freedom instead of being a prisoner to your own fears. Because that's what's going to let love in. That's what's going to allow you to love, to feel love too. All right, everybody. One more body check-in. Give yourself a hug. Put your hand over your heart. Take a deep breath. And until next time, I can't wait to see you embrace life and your feelings and love wholeheartedly. Bye for now.